So I'm here today for selfish reasons, because when I'm with Dan, my life tends to make a little more sense.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Lars Drive.
This is Faith Biscuits, where I, your host, Don Schrum, turn something meaty and nutritious into something fluffy and light that you might want to put a little jam on or something.
Gorgeous October day.
Hey! Oh, Calvin, come on back here. Hey, buddy. Welcome to my place. Stop it.
Thank you. Calvin. His name is Calvin?
Calvin.
That's adorable.
This episode is the first of 3 interviewing my friend and pastor and author, Dan Dolquist. His new book, Finding Your Wild Can Change Your Life. We don't get to that for a couple more episodes. Today, some of Dan's backstory, where we explore some shared history, including the final gasps of Christendom, and we also taste and savor some pretty good beer.
Hi. It's Don, Calvin.
Dan leads me into a sitting room at the front of his house, featuring pictures of his 3 grown kids.
Beautiful room. Love the wood and the light.
Lots of natural light. It's kind of nice.
There we go.
Yeah, there's Nathaniel.
Very serious.
And a 4 on the Enneagram.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. You can talk to my dad about raising a 4. I don't know.
I follow Dan into the kitchen. One of the reasons we've decided to meet here at Dan's house is in the last couple years, he's started brewing his own beer.
Well, see, first of all, I have to... So what is your beer quotient for today?
How many beers? 2 or 3? If it's 3, this is running, by the way. I want some samples. How many samples do you have for us?
I just want to welcome you, Don, to my home.
Speaking to this mic. I know. And then I'll make an entertaining thing. Don't worry, you look great when I talk about your book.
Here is... here's the deal, is I grabbed a couple of home brews and put them on.
Good.
Put them in the refrigerator. Calvin,
Good.
shoot. So I want you to sample.
I definitely want something.
And I think I'll start with this one because I think this is better. But this is the newer one.
All right.
And
This is the opposite of Jesus serving the better wine last. You serve it first. That's okay.
and this experimental hop that my niece's brother-in-law makes.
As in grows the hops?
Yeah, Peralt Farm. It's like a big deal. And he's basically a geneticist. And
Yes. Strong smell. Strong, delicious smell. You told about this guy. Wait.
yeah. So then it's a little funky.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Just a different
And those are the hops you use for every beer you're doing?
for this one.
Do you have a name for this beer?
I don't. And so if by chance
I like it.
we came out with a name
Today. Different, sweeter, I would say
Different, isn't it?
fruitier. I think it tastes citrusy or something.
Yeah. So this is Sabro.
Hey, that looks good. That looks dark.
It is a little dark.
Wow.
Here, I'm gonna finish it off here.
Yes. Nice pour, by the way.
So it's
My camera.
it's still a little young because it's only been in the bottle since June, July.
Okay.
I like to put it in there for 6 months. I mean, I could
really?
have a kegerator in 2 weeks, but
Put a barrel somewhere.
cheers. Welcome.
Sweet little caramel malty or something too.
Very sweet finish. Now, I'm not offended if it's not your cup of tea.
All right.
So
This is good. Perfect for drinking in an afternoon.
We walk back to the sunny entrance room with the wood floor and 2 acoustic guitars and an electric keyboard next to us. Calvin jumps up on the couch and lays down next to Dan. I sit across from him and start asking questions. This is Dan, who came, by the way, had our 6th anniversary the other day, who came to my wedding when you didn't know me that well and you never even met Julie. And I still remember you at our wedding up in Conifer, so sweet. And then suddenly, after a while, you know, becoming friends, and then you were moving to Charlotte because of her job. And you were done here in Denver Presbytery.
Yeah. And then her company was sold. Mm-hmm. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, move back to Colorado. And she said, when? And I said, how about tomorrow morning? So we literally...
Just packed it all up.
Yeah. Broke the lease, put our stuff in storage.
Incredible.
Got back here as fast as we could.
And then you've been back for 3 or 4 years now. You've been back for a while.
Yeah, 3 years. July, we've been in.
Because you were 2 years at Good Shepherd. Where were you raised?
Yakima, Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I was born for 10 years. First 10 years of my life, I lived in a little town on the Yakima River.
Yes, called
Prosser.
I know where Prosser is, of course, because we had, I don't know why, but from the Tri-Cities area, there was a good representation at Whitworth College in Spokane. So I had acquaintances from Yakima and Richland and Prosser. And there was a big Presbyterian church that was fairly evangelical.
In Yakima?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. First Presbyterian church?
There we go.
Which actually left the denomination.
Of course they did.
And so, how about this? So, because that was kind of the family church for a long time.
All right.
Well, for my mom, she's been there for forever.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, kind of a flagship church for Central Washington there. Mm-hmm. And they left the denomination over the ordination.
Like 20 years ago or so, or 10 years ago? How long have they been gone?
Oh, yeah, it might be 10 now. But anyway, so they said we wanted this gracious separation, right? So, because over ordination, welcoming.
Gracious means they get to keep their property.
Yes. And so, but Presbytery said, but you can't keep the name. Yeah.
Why the hell would
and
they
so
care?
They left over issues of inclusion. And so they named the church Grace in Christ Presbyterian Church.
Perfect.
No shadowy stuff there at all.
Because we wanted to make sure if we wanted to have another First Presbyterian Church, they'd get to have that name. And then, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, where'd you go to college?
Yeah, so University of Washington. My entire family.
All 4 years?
My entire family went to Washington State University.
Oh, yeah. You were the Husky, not a Cougar.
Right.
Are they any good this year? I don't keep track of.
Oh, well, as long as Chris Peterson's there, they'll be good.
He's the coach
He's
or what?
The coach, yeah.
Okay.
So I was there with Don James.
Of course.
The dog father.
That's very clever. The dog father, I'd forgotten
I have his poster downstairs if you want to see it.
Thanks. Maybe later on, if I've had 4 more beers, I'll be interested in seeing a picture of the dog father. You're a couple years behind me, and so I went to Whitworth College, but of course we were all my buddies were going to University of Washington or Washington State University, which was just an hour and a half south of us.
Right. Yeah. So I went to UW in the early 80s, and then I coached football at Washington State for a year, because I was thinking about doing that.
What? You coached football?
Yeah.
At Washington State?
Yeah. And
what?
People ask me, you played football at the University of Washington? And I pause, and I say, well...
Close.
I was on the team.
What was your position in coaching?
Quarterbacks, wide receivers, special teams.
Oh my God, I had no idea. That is crazy. What years are these?
Early
80s? Mid 80s?
I didn't love it that much. 1985.
And were they good those years?
Well, Washington State?
Yeah.
Mark Rippon was the quarterback. We were supposed to be great.
Wow.
But...
Wow. Yeah. I would have been in seminary in those years, not paying a lot of attention. But could I have seen you on TV pacing the sidelines during a Wazoo game?
Well, you might have seen me on the sidelines getting one of the assistant coaches a glass of water.
That would have been good. And there it is. That's impressive. And you coach for how long? You're out of college and you're coaching.
And I was thinking about coaching. So Bruce Larson at University Press says to this room full of people thinking about ministry, because we see Bruce and we see Steve Hayner.
Yes, I know Steve Hayner.
Pastor.
Sure.
And you look at those guys and you go, huh. First pastors I've ever met that I wanted to be like.
Of course.
And
admirable.
What do they do? Let's see. What they teach.
They read and they
relational. You can walk into their office and tell them your deepest, darkest secret, and they won't bat an eye. You're like, not bad. So Bruce says, if you're thinking about ministry and something else, do something else.
Yeah, you told me this story. I had that conventional wisdom spoken to me in Costa Rica about that time. Someone saying, well, if you can think of doing anything else, you should do it.
First Presbyterian Church, Seattle.
Yeah.
1940, 9,000 members.
They had 9,000.
Planted 26 churches. Radio, broadcast ministry up and down the West Coast. Today, 20 members. And half of which come from the homeless shelter in the basement.
Exactly. And great struggles in the last years trying to leave the denomination.
Yeah.
Really.
Because of their property.
Exactly. Because their property has to be the best property on the West Coast for
it's
church.
It's a city block of downtown Seattle.
Exactly. We could probably do something with that. Short of having a effective and living congregation.
Yeah.
As Presbyterians.
So Bruce comes. People are. This is the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So things are First Press struggling, and so then UPC notices more and more people from First Press are coming to UPC.
All right.
So Bruce calls the church, First Press, and says, "Hey, I kind of noticed that
we're seeing some of your people.
And so I want to know, can we do something collaborative? Instead of just people sneaking away.
Way better
from First Press. So let's do something collaborative." And the powers that be at First Press said, "We're First Presbyterian Church. No one tells us what to do."
Oh, man. The storytelling around some shared roots, especially considering Washington and Seattle Presbytery, brings up for me an ancient wound. When I was questioned on the floor of Seattle Presbytery in 1987, finishing seminary, waiting to take my position as associate pastor in Summit, New Jersey. But in that day and age, you had to be questioned on your whoever Presbytery raised you, ordained there, and then transferred. And so I stand up and read my statement of faith, and it's San Francisco Seminary. It's a little progressive. It's a little inclusive. Bruce Larson stands up. He says, "Don, are you suggesting that the Holy Spirit is available to just anybody? Or isn't it more really properly reserved for those who profess Christ as their Savior?" And I'm in front of a few hundred people. I'm thinking, shit. I know what he wants to hear. I know what the quote-unquote, right? And instead I gave a kind of something surprising about God's grace or inclusion or whatever. And so when, after 20 of the longest minutes of my life being questioned on the floor of the Presbytery and being escorted outside into the garden, they proceed to talk about me for another half hour on the floor of the Presbytery. Yes, which is 28 minutes longer than you want them talking about.
Exactly.
And because my wife was in at the time, watching the whole thing, she knew that, yes, I did get voted in with about a dozen no votes when I Bruce Larson.
Really?
Yeah, so that's my little badge of honor. It's because if a dozen doesn't sound like that many unless you've been to 100 Presbyterian meetings where no one ever gets any no votes.
You're listening to Faith Biscuits, food for thought for the road.
Wow. Relational revolution.
Nope.
Small groups.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Everybody needs to be in a small group.
How were you in small groups in your parish career?
I admit I loved it.
Fun to be in.
Over to our home.
Intimate. You tried this. You're kind of doing this experiment here, as a matter of fact.
And so, then the joke is if Dan and Sue invite you to be a part of their Lenten Covenant group or small group in their home, it's probably the kiss of death for your marriage.
What? Did you guys have a little too heavy conversations or what?
Well,
you're drinking too much of your beer at these groups? What's the problem?
We'd always go, we know so-and-so, they're kind of struggling. So
let's invite them.
Let's invite them, surround them with love, container. Okay. Who knows what will happen? Usually divorce is
what's going to... This is a sampling error, in other words. You tend to choose the people who are all right.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to seminary?
So I went to Fuller for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And how was that?
It was...
Fuller was big in Seattle, the West Coast.
Huge. West Coast, completely different. Completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that is traced to... They had a West Coast pastors' conference the week after Easter at Mount Hermon, Santa Cruz.
Right.
And people went to it. And they just
big
blocked
deal.
it off their calendar. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And Earl Palmer would be
speakers.
a New Testament preacher.
Wonderful.
I mean, it was... A lot of those guys taught at Fuller. Like...
Of course. And they had names up and down the West Coast. Earl Palmer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I told you this. Earl Palmer, by the way, who came and spoke at Whitworth College, highly regarded. I liked him a lot. And I've mentioned this. The one quote I remember from Earl Palmer, looking at a whole auditorium full of 1,000 or 1,200 Whitworth students, a good 100 or so who are going to end up going into seminary and into ministry. Yeah. He says this, pastors, it's so hard being a pastor, and their wives miss them and their kids don't get to see them because they're so busy. He says, I have no sympathy for any pastor who says he's overworked and doesn't have time. We're like, what? That's not a very nice thing to say.
Said the man who has a cabin in Puget Sound. Yeah.
Because what he said was, other than freelance writers, no one has more say over their schedule than a pastor. You're choosing to be absent from your kids, your family, your marriage. Ouch. Sobering stuff.
Sobering stuff. Yeah. I thought you were going to say... Earl Palmer saying, keep the weight on the downhill ski. But, talk about a man who just made a whole career on modernity.
Right.
I had every single one of his tapes. And I listened to his C.S. Lewis tapes and his Bonhoeffer tapes. His Romans tapes were phenomenal. And he had a whole career.
That was the time. That was the time.
He could talk about... He was invited all around the world to talk about C.S. Lewis.
Incredible. Why did you leave Fuller?
Got married.
Oh.
So I met Sue. I was actually dating, kind of seeing another woman at the time. And we were on our way to see the Rose Parade floats. The day after the January 1st and January 2nd. Yeah.
What, because they've already had the parade, but they're sitting in a parking lot somewhere, and you get to walk.
They're in a park, and you get to go see them. And they're all made of flowers, right? So it's
that's right. So you need to strike the rose hot. Yeah. I get, clever name. Got it.
Yeah. And so we're on Orange Grove Boulevard.
Wow.
Light turns red. Sue pulls up on her bicycle, stops. My friend says, Dan, have you met Sue?
She's driving, you're driving.
We're walking.
You're walking.
Sue's on her bike.
And your girlfriend is with you.
Yeah.
Have you met Sue?
Have you met Sue? The blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl from Kansas? Wow. I said no. And so she introduced us, and 18 months later, Sue and I were married.
There you go.
So
that's a great story.
Ended up, 9 months later, we weren't dating anyone, and then we had our first date, and then we were engaged in 120 days.
Wow. The rest is history.
She won the preaching fellowship at Fuller.
Oh my gosh.
We got married, and 3 days later moved to Scotland.
So
So I did 2 years at Fuller.
Was she a year ahead of you, you mean? Or
yeah, same age, but a year ahead of me.
All right.
Yeah, and she was a flour mill engineer.
Oh.
From K-State.
Boy.
Designing flour mills on the East Coast, and then I got the call.
Wow.
And we met. And so I finished up and took my awards in Edinburgh.
Yeah, sure.
And it was 1987, which was amazing because that was when the Berlin Wall fell. And
right.
Every day was just some kind of world-changing event. And I remember getting out of Hebrew at 3:30 in the middle of winter. It's completely dark. And kind of booking it home to watch the BBC
see what's
on
unfolding
this little tiny black and white TV, because there's some unfolding, world-changing event.
Incredible.
Because if you think it was East, it was Poland, it was East Germany, it was Czechoslovakia, it was Romania. So it was amazing. And then, and so Sue was ordained.
Yes.
So she was an assistant at St. Giles for a year.
All right.
Then we came back, and then she was interim at First Presbyterian Church, Glassboro.
Cool.
And I remember that church so well because she was really well received there, and it was a really good interim for them. And they had all the pews, so they had a tile floor in the sanctuary, and all of the pews were pushed back against the wall. So it was just really this awkward no man's land between the lectern pulpit
and then
space. It's empty
interpretive space. Dance. Let's go. Let's put on skits.
So, well, every Sunday I went in and I moved all the pews up forward 1 inch.
This is
that was my ministry.
Your act of rebellion. We're going to move you mothers just an inch forward, get a little more engaged, and a little less formal,
and no one will know.
No one can see.
Frog in the kettle, right? Yep. 1 inch every Sunday.
1 inch.
So, 52 inches later.
Good going.
We left.
Good going. And you left, and they probably moved all the pews back.
They probably.
Man, because there's some tradition, there's some formality in that.
Yeah. Then I went to Princeton. I got a Master of Theology. History of Christian Doctrine.
All right.
From Princeton, which no one has ever asked me about, by the way.
I'm so sorry. I'm so glad I get to be the first one. Now, listen, Princeton, of course, growing up in Seattle, it was all Fuller. But we at Bell Press, across the lake from University Press, we were a little suspicious of Fuller for being too evangelical. All right?
Yep.
Too much talking about Jesus. Too much putting heart on the sleeve. Too much in your face. We wanted to be more polite than that. And you can see how that served us so well for the last 40 years. 50, 100 years, whatever it is. In Princeton, my first job was in Summit, New Jersey as an associate. And, of course, that's just an hour north of Princeton. And there, of course, Princeton was the cat's pajamas.
Right.
Princeton was everything. And you were getting... When were you at Princeton?
So let's see, we got married 90, 91.
That's when I was in Summit.
Oh, really?
Yes, I came down for continuing education events at Princeton.
Yeah.
Listen for the rest of my interview with Dan, parts 2 and 3, when we hear more about the decline of institutional religion at the end of the 1900s. We get to hear this.
So I was jealous of you because you got to have this fun Littleton career moving a church. Damn you and building this church.
And this.
I do not answer that. I need some more beer.
We'll be switching to the double IPA now.
Oh, good.
And we get into his new book, Finding Your Wild, Dan Dolquist. We finished today with me needing some clarification on the call. What does it mean to receive a call versus just moving your family somewhere because you want to change jobs?
No, hang on. Un momento, por favor. There's a sense of vocation, and God is calling us on this adventure, and you're listening and thinking, grace, it's in Denver, and it's what God might be calling us to, and we're listening together. I mean, you're speaking now, 20 years down the road, as is it wise to choose career, not over, but in such contradistinction to the health and happiness of marriage, childbearing, grandparents? We'd make those decisions very differently now. At the time, the same thing I did in Boise was, here's this great opportunity.
Right.
I need to go somewhere.
Right.
I'm ready to go. I need a change. So, okay.
Yeah.
Boy.
So it ended up being really good in terms of the kids love Colorado.
Right.
And we're grateful that we moved. But, as Sue said, I was only mad at you for a year.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. Yeah. So.
Don here. Thanks for listening.